Give us any chance, we'll take it. Read us any rule, we'll break it. We're gonna make our dreams come true.
Welcome to Nat United, a podcast about 8 seasons in a row. I'm Lisa Fernandez, and
I'm Chris Jaiwardena. Hello.
And we're here to review Why Did the Fireman, which is directed by Joel Zwick and written by Roger Garrett. And I bet you Chris is going to have some facts about them later in the show. This is from season 5 of Laverne and Shirley, and here is what this episode is about. Laverne's blind date with fireman Randy Carpenter goes like gangbusters. Flash forward 2 months, and Randy is ready to propose, but he and Laverne keep getting interrupted. When he's sent off to fight a 4-alarm fire, he tells her to put on her best dress and wait for him at home. But Randy's never going to make that date, leaving Laverne to deal with a heartbreaking sense of denial afterwards. What do you think of this one?
Well, you kept warning me that this was going to be a pretty emotional episode, and I ended up having it spoiled through various means. And you told me that I was going to be like a wreck and a mess of emotions and everything, and I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I want my money back. But jokes aside, this was an incredible piece of work. It's an incredible episode. It's an incredible emotional episode. I think one of the things that can be said about this straight off the bat is, we've talked about season 5 being the place they were fighting to get their ratings up. Yeah. I mean, when you look on Wikipedia, for instance, they went from number 1 to number 42 for the year.
Yep.
And this is a case of them being really bold and trying to, get things up just to get something.
Yes.
And damn, they pull it off. They pull off an incredible. They didn't get the ratings they needed.
Nope.
But they pulled off an amazing piece of television.
Actually, this is probably around where the ratings starts to goose up a little bit because they finally moved them back to Tuesdays. Which
about freaking time, yeah.
Which Penny and Gary and everyone had to basically beg the network to do. After the debacle of moving them away from Happy Days and putting them all over the dial, kind of killed their viewership. They're going to rebound a little bit in the ratings over season 6, over season 7, ironically. Ironically, more people watched season 6 and season 7 than they did season 5, which is going to be really amazing to you when we get there. But,
I suspect it will be. I mean, because this is we essentially have an almost perfect is too strong of a word, perhaps, but it's a damn good one. It's a damn good run. We've only I really think of this is. We'll see where this lands on the top 5 for the season for me, but I think this is going to end up being pretty high. Yeah. I was really impressed. It isn't the only catch that I have is, my God, even if you had told me nothing, this guy had dead meat the moment he was sweet on Laverne, when it was too good.
Yeah.
To the point that I got mad when the audience laughed at saying she was really, really pretty. Which I think is added. I think they added that for comedic effect because I have a suspicion that the audience didn't laugh, and that is added in post because, she was pretty. She looked gorgeous. She looked. I mean, honestly, Penny looks incredible in this episode.
Oh yeah, she is gorgeous in this episode. Considering what she was going through in real life, she's just pulls out a hell of a performance. She knocks it right out of the park. The thing about this episode, it's not my absolute favorite dramatic episode. Look Before You Leap will always be my favorite dramatic episode. This is The Cemetery will be next. This would be third on the list. I think it's a little too pathos-ish. It feels a little too pathetic. For me.
Yeah.
By the time we get towards the end of the episode and you got Laverne sitting there in the bed going, no, I was wondering how you felt about that no. And the way Penny delivers that no.
It's a great delivery. I like the timing of it, the rhythm of it. It's very, and this is the thing about this type of art, and when it comes to great acting, great emotional directing, that sort of thing, people have different ideas of what is good or great. I definitely am not someone who believes in the objective good.
Yes.
That's one reason why I try to like as many different types of film and as many different types of stories as possible, because I just embrace all of it. Because then if you embrace all of it, you're rarely disappointed. And the feeling I get out of it is similar to the vibe I get out of very terse melodrama and noir and kind of weepy soap, sort of not soap opera. I think soap opera. I think melodrama is the word I'm looking for.
Yes.
It more in the
Yes.
sense it's very classical.
Yes.
It's and Joel Zwick was a director who did do work on Broadway before going to Los Angeles. He talks he talks about this in different places, but I was recently checking the interview with him, the Nonsense News Nation, and he discussed that he had started initially directing with a small theater called the La Mama in New York, and he said it was a bastion of avant-garde theater. And that is what kind of got him up the ranks into doing a little bit on Broadway, and then eventually going to Los Angeles. And I feel like this is one of those episodes that kind of gets to show his chops, but at the same time, as you're saying, the question is that delivery. There's a long way to get around to answer that question. I apologize, but it's great to me because there is an emotional honesty. But when we try to step back and look at the scope of the medium, it is a bit more community theater than it is the sort of very naturalistic arm of things. And so it's a type of reality that works for certain things. I think it works for this. Yeah. And I love it for this. And I love that scene. That is one of my absolute favorite scenes in the entire show. Yeah. As much as I love Look Before You Leap, and I know we may disagree on this, I think this is a more mature episode throughout. I think it balances its tone a lot better. But I also agree, in the process, it is so full of pathos. It kind of succumbs under the weight of what it's trying to carry.
Yeah. Sometimes it goes like off the rails for me, but it's not a consistent off the rails all the time thing for me. It could have been way, way worse. It's a very well-handled situation. A well-handled episode. For those of you watching the show via DVD and you watch the episodic trailer before you watch this episode, you're going to be pretty shocked, is all I got to say, because they try to sell us as a comedic episode, and it's super not. Just like, look, Laverne's dating the guy from Cheers. Isn't that amazing? Surely nothing horrible will happen here. Half the episode won't be dramatic and a really sad situation. It's just... I
mean, I warned my mom that when we watched this episode that it was going to be sad. Yeah. And she immediately, the first date, got everything going on. And my mom goes, uh-oh. And and she realized, and then it's like, then he's a fireman. And then when he gets called away, my mom was like, oh no. Yeah. And she looks at me and she looks at me, and I can't lie to my mom about something like that. She's like, he dies, doesn't he? And it's like, God, yep. Yeah, you figured. Yeah, she got it. Yeah, she got it.
Yeah. Since we know the premise of the show is that the girls have to stay single, unless we're coming towards the end of something, or unless something major happens, and we'll get there in season 8. We pretty much know that the poor Randy is not long for this world. The second he and Laverne fall that intensely in love. It's sad, but it's true. You kind of look at them though, and you wonder what might have happened had Randy lived. Would their love have lasted?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? You look at that.
It would have lasted a good long while. I think it would have been here's my thinking. He would have been the mature one in the relationship. Yeah. She would have grown immensely through it. I do think they would have broken up. There's also, again, just the nature of his work. There's a good chance he would have died anyway, just later after a time. So it's a case of, I can see the relationship working. I can see this not being some gotcha and everything turns out horrible, but that I can see it being good but difficult. Yeah. And that they both grow through it if they both survive it by the end. Because I don't know, maybe he's got a cancerous penis or something, and she get. But
he's got Elvis and Bubba Hotep disease. Oh,
God, I love you for that.
God. Anyway, yes,
it would have worked. It would have been difficult. I don't know if it would have lasted.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, because I remember when I was talking to you about this episode that I remember saying there was almost a sense of cruelty that they give her essentially like the love of her life,
yes.
so to speak,
yes.
and they just snatch it from her.
Yeah,
like you can't have that from her. And that's kind of one of my problems with it as a concept for an episode. It's like I'm to be honest, I'm amazed at how well this is executed. I think it's why I'm so forgiving of the pathos and the melodrama and those sort of elements, is that this could have been a bitterly cynical episode. This could have been crass. This could have been terrible. They could have really have screwed this up. And they did an amazing job with it, in my opinion. I mean, this is okay. For an example, the guy who got the assignment to write this episode is Roger Garrett. And this is the third episode he's done. He's done a whole bunch of other stuff. I mean, this is the guy who did the Nancy Remembers Laverne episode of Blansky's Beauties that we covered last summer.
Yes.
And he does Born Too Late, Survival Test, Helmet Weekend. And this is the guy who somehow pulls this off.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of this was refinement through the rehearsal process. I don't know how much of this was other writers kind of stepping in and kind of tweaking things a little bit. How much of this was an all hands on deck? How much of this was even just Gary? Gary was coming through with it. But I really got to wonder what it was like for writing, directing, actors, etc., looking at this and because to the outsider, this comes off as something not desperate, but bold and trying to, I know I'm repeating myself, but trying to make something good and ends up making but at the same time, it's a very cynical, like, we need to have shock value. We have to get something that's going to get people's attention. And that could have been it could have been so much worse.
Yeah.
It
handles it very well. It
could have been Oscar bait. It could have been a bad Oscar bait. This could have been The Blind Side. This could have been Monsters Ball. This could have been Crash, Paul Haggis's Crash. Because those are the types of things that come to mind for me when I think of insensitive, cynical Hollywood fantasy that is, in some respects, almost more exploitive of tragedy than a splatter movie.
Yeah. Honestly, you could tell that they were kind of hoping Penny would get an Emmy out of this. They were kind of angling it so Penny might get an Emmy, so they might get some kind of award season recognition. It didn't happen for this episode. It didn't happen for this season. They got nominated for costumes in season 3, I think. But you could see that they were trying to say, look what we can do. We're not just a silly comedy show. We got feeling, we've got heart. We've got intelligence. And after 5 seasons of people loving these characters, it's well earned. The whole thing is well earned. The episode is well earned. The sentiment here is well earned.
So I have a question for you as the person who's been the fan since long, long ago. What was your first introduction to this one?
I saw this one as part of. I probably had to have seen it in syndication when I was a very tiny child, because they did air it locally in syndication, and then I saw it some on TBS when they'd air it in the wee hours of the morning in the 90s, and then I saw it again at TV. And the first real memory I have of actually sitting down and watching this one is definitely from the TV Land run, Nick at Night run, the very end of the Nick at Night run. My first impression of it was, wow, I feel bad for Laverne. And then my other impression was, well, gee, now Lenny can come in and comfort her.
Oh my God. Oh.
You can't say the episode doesn't tease it. No.
It's true.
You can't say the episode doesn't tease it, because we do have that one scene where she's yelling, I love you, to Randy, and Lenny thinks she's talking to him, and he comes running in going, oh, Laverne, why didn't you say anything?
Yeah. Well, and my thinking was also when Randy was getting ready to propose, that Lenny and Squeaky come in, hello, is it's like Lenny knew, and Squeaky as his wingman knew, and was like, we got to go in there.
gotta interrupt it. We gotta stop it. We gotta pull the train off the track. In some dark version of the show, the boys just push him to his death, but that's not the version we're watching here.
My stomach. Oh, no, my stomach hurts from that. Oh, God.
It doesn't exist. It's not reality. It's not real canon. It's not real canon. The way the boys are just wholly supportive of this, though, because they really worship Randy.
Oh, yeah.
They themselves would love to be firemen, but they don't see the serious side of what it means until they really witnessed Randy die. They watch this man die, and nobody thinks to comfort them somewhere down the line. This episode's desperately missing a scene. I don't need Laverne to apologize to them for yelling at them, because she had a right to yell at them, and she was upset, and that was just, as our friends in the private chat said, it was a grief process.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of her, we know from a visit to the cemetery that when she's grieving, she lashes out like this. But there still needed to be a scene like where they're at his funeral or something, or where there's closure for their trauma. Because they've literally seen somebody's body, the body of someone they admired, the body of someone who was going to marry their close friend. So that's always been one of the bigger disappointments for me when it comes to this episode. Yeah.
Understandable. And I agree. I mean, it's a case of, I understand that the goals of it being very focused on Laverne, that the closure she gets with her father, which is interesting, and I'm actually glad they put a lot of importance on that, the scene with Laverne and Frank.
Yes.
That they felt that's the cap.
Yes.
And that the following scene really is the tag scene. And
in a lot of ways that works, because that is a phenomenal scene. So Phil Foster's best acting on the show.
Yeah. Layers missing, but the key for what the episode is intending to do, I found it to be successful.
Yes. It works better for you than it does for me, but it also works. It works on a lot of levels. For me, for the acting, for Phil Foster's gangbuster performance, for the way they use Edna, and the way they use Shirley. Here.
Yes, the Shirley and Carmine stuff in this is so good.
Yes.
It's so good. I know I complain a lot about Carmine, and I've had a lot even this season to complain about him, but I love how it almost inspires his own romance in him to see this in front of him. And I'm actually really mad at the fact that they have to turn to a joke of Shirley going, "Not here, no, not here, not now," and it's like, your best friend right in front of you is essentially, I fucking the guy that she's dating, over a milkshake. This is the time to go nuts. This is the double makeout. This is double makeout. That's
the double makeout. I love that even Carmine can't take it because they're not there. The two of them are not present. Yeah. Make it out. Chill, let's get out of here. I can't take this.
Yep. And Shirley is so flustered and like she's getting the vapors and
the intense steam heat of the chemistry.
Yes.
Going on there. I actually had a note for this, and it's oblivious shakes.
Oh, that'd be a good fic title.
There you go. There's your longing. There's your pining and yearning, kids.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, Shirley is 100% all in on this relationship. You can compare this to the way she reacted to Sal Molina.
Yes.
Which is really interesting if you think about it. The difference between how she is here versus what she sees when she looks at a guy like Sal, with whom Laverne gets no goosebumps.
Right.
So it's fascinating to me that I think the relationship is shorter than the one Laverne had with Sal. But Shirley can I think.
I thought her and Sal was like just a couple of weeks.
Yes, that's just a couple of weeks. Okay, so it's longer than what you have with Sal. This is 2 months. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me that almost from the first night she knows. From the first night she knows that this is different. This is real.
Well, I've told you that story about one of my actors, right? About one of the actors I've worked with.
Yes, I think you have.
I have. I haven't mentioned this on pod. I don't want to go into the detail about this on pod, but I remember relaying the story that he told me of the first date he had with the woman that less than 6 months later, she proposed to him, actually. And I remember mentioning it to my then friend Eleanor at the time, and around the time they got engaged, and I told her the story of, how they had, they met and all that sort of stuff. And she even said, wow, he knew right then and there, I wasn't even halfway done with the story. And she could tell immediately, like, yep, this was the gal that he was crazy about. Yeah. And they're still together, 2 kids and everything, they got a house and all that. But, yeah, I adore though how Shirley, the lucky dog, and all of that, and how she bounces back from that humiliation from the great opener bit, the increase the bust, and her doing aerobics in the living room, and they walk in, and Laverne's almost got this weird titillated sort of like smirk on her face about it, which is it's hysterical.
I must increase my bust. I will. That was a whole thing, like in the 60s, I think, because I've seen that in more than one show, not just Laverne and Shirley. It was a thing in pop culture. So, but I love the way that she kind of just takes the laugh, and Randy's very nice about it. Randy's very sweet about it. So he's not gonna drag her through the mud because he caught her doing something embarrassing, which is very sweet. I like that. Say hi.
Say hi.
Just to go mosey away before she does something horrible.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
I was gonna say, so Ted Danson plays Laverne's almost fiance here. This is just before Cheers by a couple of years, I think.
Yes, I believe. I'm going to double check. My
notes early 1980. This is early 1980. I know this for a fact because I was born in between The Collector, which is our next episode, and Murder on the Moose Jaw Express, the first part of it. I was born right in that difference. So I know we are in late January of 1980.
Yeah, it looks like Cheers 82.
Yep, 82. So we are indeed a couple of years from him hitting worldwide fame.
Yep.
He really handles this part with gravitas.
He does.
He knows what to do. You can tell he's got that chemistry and that ability to be a lead in him.
Yes. Oh yeah. Ted's the kind of actor that is he's a leading man that is a character actor for some reason.
Yes.
There are some actors that have been like that. There have been, because sometimes it's the reverse, right? You have like a Bruce Willis who really is best as a character actor, but he's also capable of being a lead. Yeah. Woody Harrelson's another one. I would also say that he's kind of leading man material, but often plays character actor roles. Going into the details of Ted's career seems kind of pointless. He's so well known. I mean, Cheers and Becker, Bored to Death, The Good Place. I mean, even movies we love. I mean, he's in Body Heat. He has a great supporting character actor role in Body Heat. He's fantastic in Creepshow. Yes. 3 Men and a Baby. Actually, the 3 Men duology, both and a baby and a little lady. Yes. I forgot. He's even in Saving Private Ryan. He's one of the captains during one of the camp scenes they go to.
Yes.
Totally forgot about that. I mean, I honestly feel it's kind of unfortunate this is his only appearance with Laverne and Shirley because he really would have worked in this whole show. Yeah, he would have been great.
Yeah, he would have been a great Laverne's boyfriend regular. Or Shirley's boyfriend regular or something like that. He would have worked out very well. Because he does fit in that sitcom scheme quite well, as we were about to learn. Because of how long Cheers lasted. He just has the rhythms down pat.
200 plus episodes.
Yep, long time. Long enough to lose one lead actress and gain another.
Oh my god. That's a run. That is a run.
That was a long run. Yeah. I remember how long it lasted. It started when I was very small, and it ended, I think, around when I graduated junior high school. So it was a very long time. I love that Shirley immediately wants in on this. The man should have a brother. He does. I want to meet him. He's 12. I can wait.
Yeah, what does he do? Oh, he's got a paper route. No, why not him? I mean Randy. What does Randy do? Oh, Laverne, a noble profession, a man who saves kittens for a living.
That's so cute. That's so cute. They're all gonna learn so hard. It's like
Oh,
ow, ow,
yeah.
ow.
Oh, I also love Cheryl's line. Laverne, you need to corral him and brand an L on him.
Me too. I love that too. My favorite part of Shirley's speech is the ship has come in and I'm trying to say there's not a sailor aboard.
Yeah, I like that one as well.
Boom,
Oh, that was nice.
Boom, right into Laverne's love of sailors.
Yep. And also the animosity she feels towards her dad and her brother.
And her brother. And all of the Feeney family sailors out on the high seas.
Or the lakes.
Or the
lakes,
Great Lakes. The Great Lakes, yes. The show teases the proposal so hard and it never really happens. But we know it's going to happen, that it would have happened. It doesn't happen. I love Shirley's bully livered speech. Calls her a coward.
Yeah. Right. Let's see. You are yellow-bellied, sap-sucking, sucking lily-livered coward, and I dare you to go down that pole.
Yeah, go down that pole. And then she does.
And she does.
Oh.
Yeah, Ixnay Shirley, Ixnay on the Arage May. That whole bit.
So cute.
It's my mom was worried that was what was going to go wrong, was that Shirley was going to ruin it, and everything was going to get their hopes up, and it wasn't going to be that, and oh goodness.
And then she tells Laverne that what? It's fabulous.
Yeah, don't worry, Randy. She won't say a word. Take my word for it. Carmine, your word ain't worth crap.
Nah. At this point, no, and in the next episode, even less. But we love Carmine sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. The boys' bit here, the boys' comedic bit, before they get a really serious bit in the next scene, is really good.
It is. It's super cute.
Look, Len, stuff.
Look, Len, stuff. And then they're told to go upstairs and play pinochle. Oh, yeah, that's the wooden puppet. Yeah, and the wood carver, Gestapo.
Gestapo. I love that line. I love that line. And Lenny automatically is horrified that Laverne hurt her foot and checks in on her. You gotta notice that. Here is a cool. I gotta say this quote before I mention this really cool background detail. Until smoke is no longer a 4-letter word. They're gonna fight fire until that.
Oh, goodness.
There's a lot of great boys lines in here. Look at the pegs next time you watch the episode in the background where it lists all of the firemen's names. There are names there which are the names of crew members. Joel Zwick's last name is there.
Mm-hmm.
You can see Joel Zwick. I think there's a couple other people who are very recognizable.
Yeah, I can't remember if you mentioned you saw Roger Garrett there, or if it was another J name. I can't remember.
It was another J name, and I think that it happened to be one of the production coordinators.
That's right. Yeah, it was one of those.
Yes. It's really cool. I think it was a nice little Easter egg, and it's very kind of them to do.
It is very cool. I dig it. Gosh.
You notice that Laverne tells Randy she loves him without him even looking at her. She does that a lot.
Yeah.
You'll notice that she cannot tell a guy she loves him to his face. And you gotta wonder how much of that links back into her abandonment issues with her mom.
I found that it's interesting to bring that up, because I do remember the two of them looking each other in the eye over the milkshakes when they they profess their love. That's the only. Okay. But that being said, you're right. That does happen a lot. It's hard for her to say it directly to somebody romantically.
Yeah. I just did remember the milkshake that they actually speak to each other. I remember it was the making out for 2 seconds, and now that jogged my little brains. Yeah, that is a good point. And then we get to the dramatic portion of the episode, and you know it's serious when the door opens and the boys are all smutty with soot. How close were they to that fire? You really think about
Probably closer than they should have been.
Yeah.
And as they did say, the wind picked up and getting soot and ash and everything, it can happen fast. If it was really quick and real sudden, they probably got a whole blast of it. And it's they probably already sweated some of it off by this point.
Because they had to have run down to the building to tell Laverne before anybody else could get there. So she could hear it from them. They come through that door. There is no hello, even though there is a hello entrance, which is a little show. That's morbid. To actually give him a hello entrance for this moment. I mean, sheesh.
Yeah. Oh god. She even says, what's the matter with you, Squiggy? You didn't go hello. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're having so much difficulty getting it out of them. It's the energy throughout this whole episode is just so consistent.
Yeah.
Even when it slows down here, there is that incredible tension that builds. And so you can still feel your heart rate starting to go up at the realization about to hit the audience, The
audience is silent. They are deadly silent. You could drop a pin in that place. Yep. And you would hear it.
And then he starts to, sob and, he's getting all choked up and.
Yeah. Let's compare Lenny and Squiggy's trauma response here. Lenny's is very Lenny. It's emotional. Cries. And he can't get it out in the end, and Squiggy's the one who just bluntly says it. And Squiggy can't look at her. And he's squeezing the hat, and he can't make eye contact with her. And that's really interesting to me.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting, the consistency that, Squiggy says Laverne instead of Laverne often, and they use that as a joke about, like a speech impediment or just, sort of an inflection that he uses. And they even have him use it here when he just blurts out, Laverne, Randy's dead. And I made sure to make note of that because I found, as you're saying, like the consistency of their reactions, that Squiggy's very blunt, but he's also very focused. And even though it hurts and it sucks, and he, he's not happy to break this news at all, but he does it. Whereas Lenny is so overcome, he, can't get a word out.
And just try to imagine what that's like, especially with guys like them, where they have this almost childlike opinion about firefighting. They have this almost childlike embracing of it, and this embracing of Randy as this big, huge hero, which he is. Just imagine what it's like to be there, and then you see this guy just die. Yes.
And you're reminded even heroes are mortal.
Yeah, exactly. I have some notes that Michael and David's acting is sterling here. Michael gets to do a lot here in this one little segment.
Oh, certainly.
Specifically, I'm going to say that. I still don't know if I wanted more closure. I really do want more closure with them after they see this. We brought this up earlier, but I still, every time I see this scene, I want just like 1 minute where they're there in their stupid Sunday clothing, holding flowers, and like Shirley gets an arm around them both or something like that.
Yeah. Or they're like trying to comfort themselves by petting the dogs or something, Yeah. Because I can see that, like they're trying to find some way to dissociate from the emotional pain, and they're trying to find something to pull themselves out of it, their own levels of grief, their own things. Because I can, as you're saying, like this is them confronting the reality of the adulthood aspect of this is the real world, and that, the real world is very scary, and that, being a firefighter is a exciting job conceptually, and it's a very righteous job, and it has an incredible risk involved with it.
Yeah.
And back to the scene, particularly in question that we're talking about, this scene where they tell this to Laverne, that is the last time we see them for the episode. Is that correct?
Yeah. We never see them again.
It feels like it's not enough. They had 2 scenes prior, or one scene. Yeah, at least 1 scene prior. 2 doesn't feel like enough for them, because with Shirley we get like 4. Yeah. With Carmine we get like 2, I guess. Sure.
Yeah.
Which I guess that's what they're trying to go for, but yeah.
I just feel like there needs to be a button put on their part of it, because it's like, well, the funny boys saw something traumatizing, but we're just gonna, and it's right to focus in on Laverne. Obviously, this is gonna be about her heartbreak, but other people have been traumatized by this situation too. I love that Shirley comes in and the boys drag her out.
Mm-hmm.
Get
him out of here. Apparently, I am. Yeah.
One arm under each of her arms, and they tell her out in the hallway, which we are not privileged to witness.
Yeah. No, instead we get to see the grief hit Laverne like a freight train and just break her, and she's denying and can't take it. And by the time what is it, like 60 seconds, 40 seconds, Shirley comes back in, the denial is already complete. She's covered herself up.
Yep. She just decides to keep ironing the dress and pretending nothing's happened. And that's tough. And she's going to go upstairs and drain the pudding out of the boys' bathtub. Why do they have pudding in the tub? I don't know.
And this is the second time that's been brought up now?
Yep. At one point, they put Jell-O on the floor so they could roller skate on it. At one point, they did that, and at one point, they grew tomatoes in the tub and pudding in the tub. Yeah, it's been mentioned at least twice. So, yeah.
Boys.
The way it strikes a balance between them having to grow up and do a very mature adult thing, and they try to do it to the best of their ability, because as Lenny said, we liked them too. We're not doing this just to play a prank or to hurt you. We like them too. We didn't like watching them die. Poor Laverne's just not equipped or to cope with this, or to cope with their pain.
Mm-hmm.
She just crawls into her shell, which is a very un-Laverne reaction in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I love how we just fade to the morning, and Shirley's been up all night with Laverne.
Yeah.
And she just has not been able to get through to her. Can you imagine what that's like?
I can, actually. I've not to this degree, but yeah, I've had some moments like that where you're trying to talk someone down off the wall, basically. And you stick it out, because there's certain, I haven't had those types of emotional nights or emotional times a very long time now, thankfully, but there is definitely that. I've experienced it though. And I like, as you point out, I really like and appreciate that they showcase it, because it adds definitely a depth of reality, and it also makes it abundantly clear Shirley is here for Laverne at every turn, and she is worried sick, and she also very I think what's kind of nice about it, and this is why it feels, I think this is another reason I like this episode so much. She doesn't try to act like she knows what to do. She doesn't panic. She doesn't try to control things. She goes to Edna when Edna comes down to help with food, with a meal prep, which is great. It is a moment of going to somebody for help and advice. So yes, it is clearly functioning as a screenplay format, giving exposition to the audience about what's going on. But it also is very in character. It's in the highest character of Shirley Feeney.
Because you can tell, as she said, she's tried everything she could think of, which I guess would be logic, would be comforting, would be, and then Laverne's just in denial, sitting there in her dress, humming that song.
Yep.
Humming this song that Shirley sang to her, mind you.
Yeah.
When they first got together, which, that's.
Yeah.
So I love that little bit with Edna. I'm surprised actually Edna doesn't have anything to do with trying to snap Laverne out of it. She just comes over with food, but I like how that also functions. Sort of as a bridger and a talk to.
I think because this is functioning as a way for father and daughter to finally be able to relate about a tragedy they both experienced, but now she understands it more from his perspective than she did before. And I think that's part of its emphasis. And admittedly, I agree. I would have loved to have seen Edna be more part of that. In many ways, I almost kind of wonder if Edna being there for the tag scene would have helped, kind of close that loop, basically, of the group. But I don't know. But yeah, it's a thought. Anyway, please go ahead.
I was going to say that this is when Frank comes into the scene.
Yep.
He's been on a fishing trip.
Yep.
Completely out of town. How fast did he? He must have driven all night too.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt. Yeah, you see his hair is disheveled.
Yeah.
He's looking rough. He hasn't shaved. His shirt's undone. Is on outside of it. He has untucked his shirt, and he looks just so heartbroken for his baby.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great.
Yeah, and he knows the only way to get through to her because he's been through it. He's lived it. He knows what to do. And then Penny and Phil proceed to kill the heck out of the scene.
Yep.
And the way they use this connection back to Laverne's mother dying. We never really learn how Laverne's mother died. The why of it almost implies an accident. Almost implies cancer. It could be anything. But this bonds the two of them together permanently in a way, that beyond being father and daughter.
Right.
This bonds them in a way that absolutely makes them understand each other in a way that they don't often understand each other. Because Laverne often fights Frank to kind of get free and live her own modern kind of life without the expectations of immediately becoming a mom, immediately becoming a wife. But here, they are harmonious and in sync, and it's beautiful.
It is, yeah.
The way he knows the only thing that's going to get through to her is to actually have to read it in press.
Yep.
I wonder if it had made the local news. It probably would have made the local news too.
Oh, I assume so, because it mentions he saved a family of 5 before losing his own life, going back in to try to help more people, and so it's a because that's the catch, with doing, that's one of the reasons it's such a risky job. You don't know how many people are in the building.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And if it's getting really bad and really and the wind picks up and the flames get high and any sort of fuel kicks off in from the building, I mean it's nasty. And it's as you're saying, it's like this would have been a big deal. And so he has to kind of break the truth. And the moment that really also gets it for me, that is interesting, after all of this, after the denial, after it gets through to her, I remember those words. I said them to your mother. When your mother died, I said them for a long time. And he says, but I promise you the hurt will go away. You promise the truth. And she then questioningly asks one more time the truth. And there's a look on Phil's face that makes me wonder, and this is kind of a bleak thought, but you gotta wonder, is that the first time he's ever in a circumstance like this had to lie to her? Yeah. Because you wonder, does he believe that? Because there are some losses you never get over entirely. And I mean, the only, I've mentioned to you before, like, when it comes to losing people, to death, the only person it was a neighbor, really close neighbor of ours, really at times a complicated relationship, but a wonderful man. And it was very sudden. I mean, we're talking heart attack. He was gone before he hit the floor. And his body he was like 72. So, I mean, he was old and poor health and all that, but I still miss him. And it still hurts. And I, and the thinking of why couldn't I have gotten more, any of us got more time time for it to go slower, so we could have gotten used to the idea of him being gone, because it caused a fracture in a lot of different communities he was involved in. So I wonder, is Frank lying that the hurt will go away?
He probably, as he pretty much admits, he's holding her, that it still hurts. We know that it has to still hurt. Because whatever happened to Josephine, he still goes to her graveside. Yeah. He still goes to visit her. He hasn't forgotten her, even having married Edna and being happy with Edna. So, my mother passed away 10 years ago. And it's a different kind of loss, but it is still an intense loss. And it's not that it ever goes away, but it's that it kind of ends up being proportional. The grief ends up being kind of proportional. It's like, because you have to keep going on with life, in a way. So that's what probably what Frank says to himself, and probably what Laverne will say to herself. We will revisit her loss of Randy next season. So this plot thread does not entirely go away. So it will be revisited. We will come back here. But yeah, my grandmother passed just before the COVID pandemic started.
Yeah.
And then my great aunt, passed of COVID. So it's been, you don't really want to think of how difficult it is to die that way, in a way. You gotta look at the grief you're handed and try to build something you can look back on with fondness from it, or it'll kind of swallow you. And in a way, I think that is basically what Frank is trying to tell his daughter.
I think so too. Yeah.
So basically, it's always going to hurt. It'll hurt in a different way the older you get.
Yep. And that sounds accurate to what I've experienced.
Yeah. And all she really has to do is look at and then Frank for proof that you can love again.
Mm-hmm.
So she probably deep down she knows that she can love just as strongly. It'll be different, but it'll be strong. So as the wound is raw, he's just trying to salve it just enough so she can come to this realization on her own. That's what I think. That was rambly, but it was
no. This
truthful.
is the honesty. This is the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I already mentioned I expected this episode to go long, and yep, sure enough, this is what it is. Because I feel like one of the things, when we get to the next scene, my note on the next scene that comes after this, and I really love the simplicity of the coverage to allow the emotion to simmer and stay with the main core of the conversation, but then does that dissolve to the aftermath of it, where he's finally got her tucked into bed and asking if he wants to tell her, she wants him to tell the story of that she used to love about the little girl who couldn't make pizza.
Pepperoni.
Yes. The sweetness and tenderness of family here is so needed, and was kind of missed in many ways, because this has been an interesting season that there have been some emotional episodes, but they've been very high point episodes. They've been very, and it feels like the struggles they've had have been either resolved very humorously or been dealt with in a fashion that's very, kind of lacks catharsis. Yeah. This feels more cathartic because it's, I think what's interesting about him tucking her in, and again, it's to him, this is still his baby. This is my little girl, and I got to watch out for it, and I love her so much and everything. And he's so he's because his point is trying to remind her of I'm always here.
Yeah. And
even and it's because if it's like, well, what happens when you go away, Pop? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm always going to be here. He is always in his kind of denial, because I remember that bit about I'll make the sauce, and
I'll make the sauce. It's so sweet.
And but it is weird and wild that they put this right after the right to light, because it's so intense. It's such a whiplash. Oh man.
Yeah. And then we get to the next episode, and it's lighter hearted and with some gravitas stuck in there for flavor. Yeah. But so there's kind of like you go from extreme lunacy with a sense of danger to this extreme like being socked directly in the heart drama and pathos with just a tiny sprinkling of comedy, all the way to a combination of both.
This episode of Laverne and Shirley has been guest directed by Kano.
Oh man. But Laverne ends up with Randy's helmet, and I can't imagine what she does with it. Like,
oh man, my mom choked up so much at that. She goes, "Oh man." Yeah, I was like, "Oh mom."
Oh, mom is so sweet.
Oh. Yeah, she is a romantic. She's an absolute romantic. She would have loved if everything had worked out, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have said yes. Which,
Yeah. That's big ouchies for that one.
And the dog is at the funeral, but the boys aren't. But
yeah.
I gotta stop harping on that because that's a sweet moment. I love
it. It's a sweet moment. We this was brought up in conversation today by group chat, and we're working something out.
We're working through our trauma. We're working through trauma. That reminds me, before we move on to rankings and other stuff, I have to say one thing. I love that bit where Frank says that he has always been honest with Laverne no matter what. And when she asked about the facts of life, he gave them to her, but he mumbled them. That's why she had turned into Filthy Tony Piconi, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, I mumbled the truth.
I mumbled the truth. It's always the truth.
It's a great line.
Goodness. I guess we're at ranking time, or we got more?
I think we are, yeah. I took it first last time. What about you? I'm curious where you're going to land with this one.
Okay, this is, oh gosh, it's a high 7, low 8. I can't deny the strength of the performances here. It's not a full-on 10 level for me like Cemetery or like Look Before You Leap for me. Sometimes it gets a little too operatic emotionally where it starts to feel gratingly fake. I need closure for the boys. The fact that the boys don't get closure always grates on me when I watch this episode. And I don't think it should be about them and their grief and their trauma. Laverne's trauma and grief obviously deserve space. But the performances make this sale, the direction make this sale. Ted Danson is invaluable. So that's where I'm staying. This is where I'm staying. High 7.
So I'm gonna go Fellini and say 8.5.
Oh.
Yeah.
But you're gonna go for a 9. I'm not with this one.
It might be a 9. It's part of it is I think it's 8.5 is the good sweet spot because it sometimes fluctuates up to a 9, but it's not always perfectly strong. What's also interesting about this episode to me is it works as one of the better, very special one-off episodes that it becomes this really great show. It's totally very strange and heartbreaking to have this in the middle of big dumb sitcom and right smack dab in the middle of a bunch of goofy episodes. It's really heavy. Like if this had been like one of the first episodes of this season, I think things would have gone very differently. But I also think the first half of the season was kind of necessary to get them to inspired to be like, all right, we got to pull out all the stops and just go for it. I love how experimental they are with it in that sense. And I feel like it works. It does such a good job of structuring itself as its own closed loop that you are able to get the gauge of all. I guess what I mean is that this is good episodic television and that you could watch this one episode and still understand most of what's going on. Yeah. Because it's so centered on this core relationship and how people react to it. Same thing with to some extent with Look Before You Leap. Same extent with some of the more comedic episodes like Steppin' Out and things of that nature. And so that's why I give it such high praise is because it is because like Visit to the Cemetery requires knowledge about that world and those characters to really work. You can't really watch Visit to the Cemetery and get it without High Neighbor. You can't watch Shirley's Operation without Mother Knows Worst or Buddy, Can You Spare a Father? You can't kind of get the impact. Yeah. This is able to give you this incredible emotional impact, pathos, gravitas, all those adjectives throughout. And you really don't need any. You could we could have brought somebody on to guest with this episode who was just a Ted Danson fan. and it probably would have worked. I think it's best we didn't, just because we have emotions about these characters and what they go through. But yeah, so that's my thinking. So anyway, I love the episode. I think it's definitely one of the strongest of the season. When we come back to review this for top 5 time, that's going to be very interesting to explore. But
yes.
Thankfully, as we're recording now in August, I don't have to worry about that until May of next year.
I was going to say, you got a long time to worry about it.
Oh boy.
Space.
All right.
Time. Yeah.
Anyway, is that I think that covers everything for today, don't it?
Yeah, I do believe it does.
All right. Well, thank you again, everybody, so much for joining us for Night After Night. And if you would like to know more, please find us at Night After Night PC on Twitter or Night After Night Pod on Facebook, Tumblr, WordPress, Patreon, YouTube, etc. We do a lot of little watch-along things on the Twitter. We do a lot of different posts there. We also have some special videos up on our YouTube channel. And on Patreon, if you give us a little bit of dough, you get to have these episodes a little early if you'd like. And maybe even possibly get some bonus episodes. Or something of that nature. Actually, more like you'll just get them early, mostly it's just early. But, all that sort of good stuff. And so I think that covers all the please join us elsewhere on the social medias. Please talk to us. We're lonely and we're hurting and we need comfort.
Give us closure.
Anyway, my pockets feel a little light. You mind if I give you my shoes for collateral for before the next episode, Lisa?
Yeah, I'll take them. So will Shay Fister. In this episode coming up, Carmine freaking joins the Mafia in a desperate attempt to make something of himself and earn more money and impress Shirley and make her happy.
What? We finally get a Mafia Carmine episode?
Not really. He joins up with a loan shark. He breaks people's legs when he becomes a loan shark.
That's still. Did he get to use a baseball bat? Do we get some lead pipe action? Like, come on, man!
His fist, but it doesn't really happen on screen. This is the collector.
I think I already know what the joke is going to be when we start this episode. When they start the next episode. All right. Well, cool. So we'll collect some Carmine emotions and thoughts, and I will try not to lose my mind next week. Then
keep your minds whole and steady, children. Don't fall in love. It's a scam.
Oh God. Fall in love. Yeah, fall in love, kids. It's worked out really well for the two of us.
Yes, it has. There you go. Bye, y'all.